That's exciting.
I'd like to welcome Scott Harris, who is here in our midst, and he will be our speaker this evening. Before he gets started, we are going to have some announcements. So everyone in this room, pay attention because I've got you right here. And the first announcement is our fall fundraiser. It's in the mail. It's going to be coming to you in the next few days. We actually only have one fundraiser a year, one main fundraiser, and that's what we call our fall appeal. We encourage everyone to give whatever they're able to give, whatever amount works for you, but it helps to fund all of our education programs. It helps us be able to deliver our weekly bird walks with Andrew, our beginner bird walks with Karina and Tom and Carol and others. And it helps us with any costs we have associated with all of the citizen science that we do, all the materials for our boxes. We have, Tom told me we have over 200 boxes now that fledged over 500 young bluebirds this year for the past 2 years, or close to 500 for the past 2 years. So that's sensational. And congratulations to Tom Slaker, our vice president, who's in charge of that particular program. Let's see. Well, welcome everyone. So our fall fundraiser appeal is in the mail. You should be getting it this weekend or early next week. A special note, if you are able to donate as much as 200, you can get, or I think it's 300, our brand new t-shirts. We have a Kestrel t-shirt. My son points out the coloration in it looks like a European kestrel, not an American kestrel, but we'll go with the kestrel. And for $200, you'll get the Birds of Napa County book by the Heinzels. And for $500, you'll get our beautiful hardcover breeding bird atlas of Solano County. So that's the fundraiser appeal. This year, we're encouraging people to donate online if you want. You can click on the donate button. Any donation that comes in from now, it works for the appeal. And if you aren't a member and you give a donation, any donation of 25 or more, you become a member automatically for the rest of this year. So we're trying to simplify things and make things more expedient for everyone. Our winter newsletter is also on the way. It's at our designers, so that should be coming out early next week. So be looking for that in the mail as well. Some people requested hard copy. So if you're a member, you can receive a hard copy from now on. If most members get it via email, anyone can download it at any point from our website. So if you lose it someplace in all the mail that you get, you can download it at any point. We're trying to do that to save paper and costs, but we know that lots of us like to have a hard copy in our hands, so it's fine for you to have a hard copy as well. There's a few members from last year that have not yet renewed, so we encourage you to fill out the fundraiser and rejoin. If you haven't, please rejoin, because it's really important. Your membership means a lot to us, and it helps support our newsletter and other communications that we have with you. So congratulations, Pam Condos, who's a new member of our board, spearheaded the new Kestrel t-shirts, and they're beautiful. We have men's and ladies sizes of all size, from small to extra large, and the extra larges are really extra large. So they run a little bit big. They might shrink, I don't know, but they're some of the best material for a t-shirt that I've ever seen. So I do have a picture of one up, but so far I'm getting glitches about sending you to a place where you can actually buy it yet, but hopefully tomorrow I'll figure that out and it'll be up on the website where you can buy one right there yourself. So the most important announcement of the evening is calling all birding volunteers to participate in our Christmas bird counts. They're just around the corner. We coordinate 2 different bird counts. The first is the Benicia count. It's the 76th annual Benicia bird count. It started way back in 1930, and there were years off for the wars, but it's the 76th one that we've had. Started in Benicia with a man named Emerson Stoner, who's a famous birder in the area. And then we took it over, I think, Robin, in about 1971. Robin Leong is the coordinator of this, and Tom Sliker is learning all the tricks of the trade this year with Robin, and eventually Tom will take it over when Robin decides to move to Hawaii or retire or both. So the important thing to know is that each sector of the Christmas bird count has really expert leaders. So we encourage birders of all abilities to join us and just join it. It's lots of fun. Hopefully the weather will cooperate this year. It was a little chilly last year, but they will have a potluck dinner at the end of the day. Somewhere we were originally going to have it at the Florence Douglass Center, but that has already been reserved. So we're going to have it somewhere else. The Angwin Christmas bird count is coordinated by Murray Berner. It's always January 1st. So you can start out the new year with a new list. We often get over 100 species on the very first day of the year. So it really kicks off your eBird list if you're into that. All the address details will be in the newsletter to contact them. But if you can't get a hold of someone, call me and we'll get you connected with a Christmas bird count. We also do a Christmas bird count for kids at Connolly Ranch, and we invite all the school kids that we've been working with to come at Connolly Ranch. And that's going to be on Sunday, December 17th, the day before the Benicia count. We have a host of speakers coming to be with us. In January, we have a speaker speaking on raven predation of snowy plover nests and what people are trying to do to preserve and save the snowy plovers. In February, we have Nathan Piplo returning. He's an incredible birder who specializes in bird song. He often gives quizzes to the different conferences like the Western Field Ornithologist. He leads the quiz that tries to trick all of these experienced birders. But he's going to speak to us on the Internet of Wings, how the data revolution is about to change the way you bird. So we'll be interested to see how that is. Then anyone who uses Merlin, the data revolution has already influenced the way you bird. You can turn Merlin on and it will tell you the ID of all the birds that it can pick up in its speaker. And it's about 90% correct now. It's improved to such a place that when we're doing a survey, we'll often just turn it on in the background to see if we missed some bird in our survey. So it's a great concept, and Nathan Piplo will be joining us February 8th for that one. We have monthly field trips, and our next field trip is this Monday and Tuesday to Pinnacles. We're going to go in search of condors. So we hope that will be successful. If we have a great day on Monday, we might head down to Elkhorn Slough on Tuesday. We also have weekly bird walks with Andrew. Andrew sends out an e-blast each week to let you know where they're going to meet. They're always from 8 to noon. And Andrew's a spectacular birder and naturalist, and we encourage you to join him. And then people like Karina here in our audience are leading beginner bird walks at American Canyon Wetlands, along with Carol and some of her helpers. And they do a spectacular job, and they've had 25 people or 30 people come for the beginner bird walks. And we have binoculars to share if you don't have a pair. So be on the lookout. Do you know the date of your next one, Karina?
Not this Sunday, but the
following. A week from this Sunday. So this Sunday should be the 12th, the 19th. The 19th. Great. And then upcoming field trips for those of you that are interested. And I'm going to turn the program over to Scott. We are going to Sutter Buttes in December. And that's a spectacular place. It's very hard to get into Sutter Buttes because most of it is private land. But we are going with the agency that protects Sutter Buttes, and we'll have a great field trip there on December 2nd. And then on December 15th, Robin Leong is leading a pre-count to the Benicia count, and they go to some of the hot spots that are in the Benicia CBC, and they will do that on Friday, December the 15th. Robin and I will be sending out notices about that for you to sign up. And then in February, we hope to go to the Sacramento Wildlife Refuges in the Central Valley. It's a fantastic time to go. The geese and the ducks and the waterfowl that are here right now, it's a spectacular showing. You might see as many as 30,000 snow geese taking off in the sky. It's really magnificent. So don't miss out on that one. That will be February 3rd and 4th. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to Scott Harris. Scott Harris took a little more than a year and went on a raptor quest. He traveled all over the United States trying to see every raptor in existence. And I'm not going to give away the show, Scott. I'm going to let you talk about it. But not only did he see lots of birds, but he met a lot of wonderful people. And that's what's in store for us tonight. So join Scott Harris. He's there on my screen. I'm not sure if people can see him, but there he is. And so, Scott, if you share your screen, then you should, your screen will come into view.
All right, let's.
There you go. I see it. Perfect.
Do we have it?
We have it. It's perfect. You're all set. Turn your sound. Turn your sound up just a hair, and then we'll be able to hear.
Better?
Yeah. Turn it up even a little more because then it'll come through to everyone. There you go. Perfect.
How we sounding now?
You're sounding great.
Okay. Well, this is only going to take a minute or two.
Actually, people are saying a little louder. So
okay.
I have mine turned up almost to the end just because we're online. It really helps. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to let Scott take it over.
All right. Are we good with the sound? I've got 1 or 2 clicks left. Does anybody want that?
That's pretty good. Just stay close. What? Yeah, people are saying louder if you can. And I'll turn mine up louder too. It might come through on mine.
All right. That's all I've got in the volume. I got to tell you, I'm 66 years old. No one's ever told me to be louder. So that's a new one for me. But Mark, give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me? You've got, Mark, you're muted. Okay, well.
I'm unmuted. We can hear you really well.
Okay, perfect.
My speaker system isn't really great on this. So the people in our room are going to have to be good listeners.
All right.
Otherwise, you're good.
Okay, well, first of all, and this is the most important part. Thank you to Barbara and Mike for setting this up for me, and making all of this possible, and of course to your Audubon Society, which sounds like a blast. It sounds like you guys have stuff going on multiple times in a month, which is very exciting, and I'm happy for you guys that get to do that. And I'm out in South Carolina now. My wife and I retired here about 3 years ago. Previous to that, we lived in California, although you guys might not count it because it was Southern California, but nonetheless, California it was. And so for me, this is an absolute pleasure. This part of the continuing journey, if you will, is a real joy for me. I love speaking to different groups and having a chance to meet people. And I will let you know that I don't take interruptions as a negative. If anybody has any questions or things that they want to add on this, please do. I'd be more than happy to answer them as we go along. There'll also be some Q&A at the end if anyone has questions. So whatever works best for you. The journey is continuing, and this book and the photographs in it are a big part of that journey. And it was exciting that I was able to make that happen. But the truth is, the most important part of the whole journey was the people I met along the way. Everywhere I went and all of the trips that I made, and as you'll learn as I go through this, some of these I had to make multiple trips to the same area to find some particularly stubborn birds. But I was just thrilled with the people I made. Some of them have become friends over the time, and now I get to see them socially when I travel into their region. So that part of it has been absolutely thrilling. When I moved to South Carolina, which was about 3.5 years ago, right when COVID first started, I was not a birder. That was not something that was part of my life. And we're blessed. We live on a lake, and my son and I were sitting outside and enjoying a cigar in the day, and we were on a deck out there, and birds kept flying by. And I looked at my son. I said, I have no idea what these birds are. I'm probably gonna have to start to figure that out while we're here. And a couple of days later, the Sibley Guide showed up. My son had gone on and ordered me the Sibley Guide, and that got me kicked off and enthusiastic about it. My regret to that is my wife and I have been fortunate enough to do a little traveling. We've been to all 50 states at least twice, and we've been to probably 35 countries. I can only imagine the number of birds that I saw and didn't pay attention to on all of those trips that I would kill to get a chance to see now. The very first day that we moved here, the very first day that we moved into the house, we had a bald eagle fly over the house. We have a number of bald eagles that live on the lake. And that's not something we had back at my home in Southern California. And so I was absolutely thrilled with that. And so that played a role in kicking this off. I love to write. I want to be clear. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an ornithologist. I'm not a birding expert. But I'm a halfway decent writer. I think I've published about 52 books in the last 7 years. But this is the first one in this genre. And when I got excited about birding, I wanted to write a book, but I didn't know what I might have to offer the world of birders, and especially with my limitations in education in that area and experience. So that's where I came up with this idea for the quest. I had actually just watched the movie The Big Year just before we moved out here, and I loved the movie. I like Steve Martin, and the guys in it were funny, and it was an enjoyable movie. And while I enjoy all birds, I would be lying if I didn't say that raptors are my absolute favorite. There's just something about them. I realize that I'm, anthropomorphizing them by talking about them being, whatever they are, regal, let's say, compared to some of the other birds. But for me, there's an attraction that hasn't diminished. And so I started to do some research on birds, and I discovered that there are 53 raptors that are generally claimed to be U.S. birds. We can talk about whether that might be accurate or not, but nonetheless, that's what we claim. And my big year, my 12-month year turned out to be a really big year. It was 17 months. It went from September of 21 to January of 23. If I was going to do it over again, if I was to start fresh and do it over again, I think I could see them all in 12 months, but I didn't have enough experience and knowledge to understand the seasonality of the birds that visited coming down from Canada or up from the lower Americas. And so I had to cycle back around and pick up another winter. But it was a good experience for me. It was a good learning experience for me. The 53 raptors that I mentioned include 3 vultures, 19 owls, and 31 diurnals. Those are the groups that make up the 53. And so that's what I used as my go list. That's what I was basing it on. One of the things I was surprised to learn as I went through this is there is not a generally accepted definition of raptor. There is not a universally accepted by the American Birding Association or AOS or any international organization of what a raptor is. And there's a little bit of controversy about what should and shouldn't be included in raptors, which most of you might be familiar with. Mark mentioned the upcoming trip to look for California condors. A lot of people don't think that vultures should be included on the list of raptors. And there are people arguing that maybe parrots should be, and a number of different things. And I'm reminded back in 1964 when Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart famously said that while he couldn't define pornography, he knew it when he saw it. And I think that's probably the case with raptors for most of us. They are distinctive looking birds, I think, in general. But you have to wonder how long that's going to hold. I mean, are vultures going to continue? There's a lot of talk now about splitting Harlan's hawks out of the red tails and adding that to the list. So there's a lot of fun about that. And I mentioned before that we seem to claim the 53 birds. I think there's a handful that maybe we shouldn't. The hook-billed kite, which barely crosses the border in southeastern Texas, and even then generally only in the winter. That's really a Mexican and Central American bird. And a handful of the birds that come down for a little bit from Canada, the northern hawk owl and the snowy owl and the great gray owls, we get them for a short period in a fairly small territory. They generally live up in Canada and even north of that. But we are Americans, so if they show up, we claim them. And maybe that's a fun part about it. The distribution of raptors, this was my canvas. It was over 48. I didn't include Hawaii and Alaska on this venture, although there are no additional birds in Alaska that would impact the 53. There is one in Hawaii, the Hawaiian hawk, and then there's also a subspecies of the short-eared owl, which again is being discussed to split that out from our short-eared owl. And I actually have spoken to and spent some time with the people that are doing that research now at the University of Hawaii and trying to see if maybe they can get the split for that, which would give them, they would then have 2 endemic raptors instead of just the one, but we'll see what happens. Of the 53 raptors, 20 of the 53 have been found in all 48 states, which I found fascinating. I like that. 2 of them have only been found or have been found in 49 states. Or I'm sorry, 47 of the 48, my apologies. And for both of them, the state that they have avoided is Louisiana. And that would be the northern goshawk, now the American goshawk, and the northern saw-whet owl. They have not been, and I'm using eBird for my research in case anyone's wondering, but those 2 birds have not been spotted in Louisiana, at least as of yet. So we'll see if that happens. The snowy owl has been spotted in 46 of the 48 states, having skipped Arizona and New Mexico, but it did visit Louisiana. And 5 of the raptors are normally found in 3 states or fewer, and that would be the Aplomado falcon, the ferruginous pygmy owl, the whiskered screech, the hook-billed kite, and the white-tailed kite. Those are generally found in 5 or fewer states in a given year, or even if you back it up and take a 2 or 3 year block. So this is a little bit now about my trip, about my travels. Driving was my preferred method of travel, always has been. And so if time allowed, wherever I was going to chase these birds, I would drive. And so I made 7 cross-country trips over the course of the year. I did 13 flights over the course of the 17 months to Texas and Florida and Montana. I made 3 or 4 trips out to California, and I think I was only able to drive on 1 or 2 of those. I did tens of overnight trips, just fairly close trips. Anything within 5 or 6 hours, I could drive one day and bird the afternoon and the following morning, and then drive home in the afternoon. I will tell you that in my flights, I had terrific good fortune. 13 flights was round trip flights was an awful lot of legs because most of them were not nonstop. And in all of those flights, they all left on time and they all landed on time, with a single exception, which was I was going down to Harlingen down in southeast Texas on one of the 4 trips it took me to get the hook-billed kite. So we landed in Houston and had a short flight to go into Harlingen, and it was about 11 o'clock at night. And as we got close, it was foggy, and the captain came on and he said, we can't land, it's too foggy. We've got about 15 minutes worth of fuel left. So we're going to circle around for a few minutes, and if it doesn't work, we're going to head back to Houston, which was disconcerting since Houston was a 45-minute flight. And he said we only had 15 minutes of fuel. Somebody must have said something to him, because about 3 or 4 minutes later, he came on and said, no, what I meant was we have 15 minutes to see if we can get through the fog. And if not, we have plenty of fuel to get back to Houston. So that made it, that was a welcome piece of news for me. On my driving, again, I was fortunate. I never broke down, not even a flat tire. So that went very well for me. I had one little mishap, but that was self-imposed. I was in Kalispell, Montana. I had driven out there in my truck and was looking for a snowy owl among some other things, long-eared owl and a couple others while I was up there. But there was a place about 3.5 hours away that I had been taken to once before by a guide that was just spectacular. It was this driving area in these open plains. And so I went over there by myself in the morning and got there at sunrise. And by noon, I had seen 119 different raptors, not counting all of the turkey vultures that were flying around. It was just spectacular. Barred owls and great horned owls and red tails and ferruginous and both eagles. And it was just amazing. When I went to leave, I thought, well, if I race back the 3.5 hours, I can get back to the little airport where the snowy owl had been spotted, and I can get another shot at trying to see that. So I typed in Manning Road into my GPS, and it instantly came up, said 3.5 hour drive. I said, great. I hit go, and that was it. After that, I just followed the directions, but I wasn't paying attention. I was listening to a book, and by the time I looked up, I was at the Canadian border and in a line that I couldn't turn around in. So when I got through, it turns out that there was a Manning Road in Alberta, Canada. It was also 3.5 miles from where I was. And because I wasn't paying attention, there I went. And Canada wasn't happy with my explanation. So they kept me for 3.5 hours in a building, checking passports and doing all kinds of stuff. Absolutely certain, apparently, that I had drugs or guns in the truck. When I finally got through, they gave me this written thing. They share a building there with the U.S. Border Patrol and said, hey, the guy's clean, let him through. So I went on the U.S. side. They weren't happy with me or the explanation from Canada, and they kept me another 3.5 hours. So it was 7 hours, and I went about 200 yards before I could get back into the States and move on. So I will pay more attention in the future as I do that. And it was 25 weeks of traveling. So of the 17 months, for 25 of those weeks, I was on the road. I visited 34 states, and I traveled well over 100,000 miles. So that is what I invested as far as traveling in order to try to track these birds down. Again, using eBird quite often. And then friends that I made and networked with around the country that say, oh, you've got to come for this, or you got to come now, we've got X, Y, and Z. So there were a lot of flights where I jumped on very short notice. I meant to go through this. Those are the 34 states that I visited. And I shared with you the Canada story. So the snowy owl back at this little airport, in just outside of Kalispell. I had 5 days on that trip, and I went all 5 days, and I spent about 15 hours going through this airport looking for this exact snowy owl, as it turns out, and did not find it. And on the last day, on the Friday afternoon, it was getting dark. I had to head back for dinner with some family, and I had an early morning flight. So I had about 10 minutes left. And I was in this area. And by the way, they had some great names in this airport: Sky Ranch Lane, Pheasant Heaven, and my personal favorite was Moonbow Loop, which I thought was kind of a cool name for a road. And with my last 10 minutes, I noticed there was a car pulled over on the side of the road. So I pulled up, and we rolled down our windows, and I said, hey, are you birding? And he held up his binoculars, and I said, any chance you've seen the snowy owl that's been reported? And he looked at me and said, you mean the one right there? And there it was behind him on this particular roof on this house. So I was able to get some nice shots. I was able to get the bird, and I felt very fortunate. That was one of 2 birds that I got with only 10 minutes to go on a couple of different trips. So that was an absolute blast. I broke it down a little bit by state to give you an idea, and California is well represented. So these are the states where these numbers that I'm giving you are the birds that I saw for the first time in that state. Obviously, a turkey vulture, I could have listed, 34 states. There's one everywhere you go. But what I did is the first time I would see a bird in a state, that's when I would count it on my list. And so as I did that, there were 4 states where I saw one. the Dakotas, Pennsylvania, and Wyoming. There were a couple of states with 2, which were, this got out of order, I'm sorry. Minnesota and New Jersey had 2. Colorado had 4. All of them were owls that I saw in Colorado. And I'll talk about a guy named Scott Rashid, who was a tremendous help to me in that area, and another 4 down in Florida, including a couple that aren't considered endemic, but really are. The snail kite and the short tail are pretty much isolated into Florida. The states where I saw 5 of the 53 were California and Arizona, and one state had 8, which was Montana. It had 3 of the owls, rough-legged hawk, northern goshawk, again now the American goshawk, and the last 2 birds that I was able to get on the trip both came from Montana, the gyrfalcon and the northern hawk owl. Those were numbers 52 and 53. And I was starting to get a little discouraged that I might not find them. And right around the end of December, so about 15 months into this, or I guess 16 months into it, I got a call from somebody saying, hey, if you can get here, there's a gyrfalcon, and I can put you right on it in an area called White Sulphur Springs. If you ever get a chance, White Sulphur Springs is a remarkable place to bird, especially in the winter. Big open fields, lots of farming, and more bald eagles and golden eagles than you can shake a stick at. Just tons of them. But I got there and went up to White Sulphur Springs and went to where the gentleman suggested I go. And sure enough, there was a gyrfalcon there. I was able to get it. And the last one was a northern hawk owl. I came home from that trip to Montana, and 4 days later, I got a call from the same guy saying, there's a northern hawk owl that is in a place called Wise River, Montana. The people up there, it just came in. They don't want to make a big deal of it. It's not on eBird. eBird ghosts that stuff anyway. And they don't really want to share where it is, but I know that it's in Wise River. So my wife kindly had me on a plane about 12 hours, and I allotted 4 days to find the bird. I got there in the afternoon, took an early morning flight, got there in the afternoon, and thought, well, I'll just go to Wise River and kind of explore it a little bit, get an idea of the roads, and then I'll just spend the next 3 days looking. It's not a big area. Hopefully I can find it. So I made a left on the first road into Wise River, which was a dirt road. I had 4-wheel drive, and I drove about a half, maybe 3/4 of a mile down the road, and there it was. There was the northern hawk owl sitting on an unused utility pole, and absolutely didn't care that I was there. I was there for about 2 or 3 hours that afternoon before it got dark, and got a ton of pictures, which is the cover shot on the book that you saw earlier. And I went back the next morning. It flew in to greet me, and I was probably watching that bird for about 4 hours while it hunted. And at one point, it was just a 1-lane dirt road. I was on the opposite side of the road from the bird. It was up on a pole, but I was directly across from it. And suddenly it dropped down from the pole, flew across the road, and brushed against my blue jeans with its left wing, and then landed on a bush about 20 feet on the other side of the road. And for me, that was just mystical and magical that bird flew down and brushed against me. And it was just kind of a really neat ending to that part of the trip. So I took advantage of that and used the picture as the cover in the book. My home state of South Carolina, or I guess my new home state, had 9 of the birds, and the state that had the most was Texas. And included in those, so I had 11 of the 53 that I found in Texas, and maybe some of you saw those, but I also got down to see the bat falcon, which, if you follow the rarities, there was a bat falcon hanging around down there for a little bit. Not terribly difficult to find, perched on the same spot every evening for about 2 weeks. And it didn't mind that there were 50 or 60 photographers there every day taking its picture. And then it disappeared. We don't know if it was predated or just went back into Mexico or what happened to it, but it eventually left. And I thought it was a really neat thing to be able to see it. I visited 8 hawk watches on the trip, and the states that they're in are marked there. a couple of things that I learned as I visited these hawk watches. Number one, every one of them was manned almost exclusively with volunteers, and all of them were enthusiastic and devoted, and all of them were kind and trying to assist and give information and whatnot. And I thought that was beautiful. It's an interesting note, I think, also that almost all of them spelled hawk watch differently. Some of them spelled it as one word, some as two words, some capitalized the H and the W, some didn't. There is no consistency in the spelling of hawk watch. On those 8, I saw 24 different species and thousands of raptors flying through. In Tubac in Arizona, I got the common black hawk and a zone-tailed. Commissary up in Wyoming was the sharp-shinned. Hawk Mountain was Cooper's. Cape May was a merlin and an osprey and bald eagles. Benson State Park down in Texas. If you haven't been and you love raptors, it's just an awesome place to visit. I got a gray hawk, a Swainson's, a broadwing, and eventually a hook-billed kite. So that was great. And in the spirit of candor, what I discovered is I don't enjoy hawk watches. The idea of just sitting there and staring up and watching these pinpricks in the sky and trying to identify them by wing beats or whatever it is, it wasn't for me. I tried it multiple times, and I would much rather go out into a prairie or a forest or a seashore and find a single one and be able to watch it for a while and note the things that it does and really be able to see it. But there are certainly a number of people who absolutely love hawk watches, and God bless them. I think it's a great thing. And so it was a fun part of the trip. It was a good learning experience for me. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time going back to them. But if you do want to see thousands of raptors in a single sitting, there's a number of them that are worth it. Hawk Mountain and Cape May are 2 of the better ones, as far as seeing variety and just sheer volume of birds. And this gives you an idea of the birds that I saw at the different places. 3 of the hawk watches were in Texas, and they were fantastic. They were really enjoyable. I will share with you a story. I was at the Benson Rio Grande Valley one in Texas, and I went 4 times, and all 4 times the same 2 volunteers were working the hawk watch, and they had a system down. One gentleman would look through through his scope and call out the counts, and the other gentleman would confirm them and write them down, and they would do that every day from about 7 a.m. to 11 or 12. They would stay 4 or 5 hours, and they just had their system down. And if you haven't been, when you're at the Benson Rio Grande, they call it the Hawk Observation Tower, you're actually looking into Mexico. You're looking across the river and down into Mexico. And one morning, the gentleman who was looking through the binoculars, there was a big rising of turkey vultures, just a huge rising that took off. And he turned to his partner there and yelled out, he goes, "That's 517 turkey vultures." And he did that in under a minute. So I thought it was a joke. I turned and I said, "I got 516. And he turned around and gave me a dirty look and said, "There's 517. I thought, okay, fair enough. We're going with 517. So I learned that we don't have a sense of humor about counting turkey vultures in Texas, or at least on that particular one. These were of the 53. These were the 8 that were the toughest, and a handful of these I only got to see once on the trip, even though I was in multiple spots where they could be seen. Some of that was certainly my lack of ability and experience, but in a lot of cases, especially the first time I go visit an area, I hire a guide each time, and didn't see any more of them with the guide. These were just particularly tough ones to find. So the common black hawk, I saw a handful of them, but all in one day and all within a half hour at the Tubac Hawk Watch. The flammulated owl is the only one of the 53 that was a herd only. I never actually saw a flam. I was in Colorado with a gentleman who has written a number of books about Colorado owls, especially the small ones. He loves small owls, and we went out a couple 3 nights looking for a flam. And the best that we could do was hear it. He had explained to me that if you hear common porwells calling out, that's usually a sign that flams are around. And on our third or fourth night out in the middle of absolutely nowhere at maybe midnight, we heard some porwells start, and sure enough, a couple minutes later, we heard a flam, and we tried tracing it through the forest, but it didn't work out. The Gyr falcon I already shared with you. The hook-billed kite, again, it crosses up from Mexico into Benson State Park in Texas, and it generally comes in the winter. If you look at the rare bird list now, it's showing up almost every day. But I made 3 trips down there and didn't find that little Dickens. And on my 4th trip down, I was there 3 days again and didn't see it. And nobody on the stand saw it. And it's about a 1.5 mile walk from the stand back to the parking lot, although they have a tram that goes around. And I decided I'll just take a walk. And sure enough, halfway through that walk, I looked up to my left, and there was a hook-billed kite. I was able to snap a couple of ID photos and felt absolutely blessed about being able to do that. So that was a thrill for me. The northern goshawk, or the American goshawk now, I only saw once, and that was in Montana as well. And it was beautiful. It was perched, and it was it was snowing, and the ground was covered with snow, and the bird just looked so regal and so stunning. The northern hawk owl I shared with you, finding that in Montana after getting a phone call. The short-eared owls was a fun day. I went out with a guide in Montana. We went to an area where he was confident we would find short-eared owls, and we spent hours in the morning. They're pretty much crepuscular, so you're seeing them feed in the mornings, and sunrise and sunset basically. And they look fairly similar. Again, if you're not familiar, to the northern harrier, they feed the same places, they feed the same time, they eat the same food, and they look fairly similar flying. So you gotta, I at least have to be careful. It's not automatic for me at a glance to know which one is which. But we spent hours, and then our day was over. So he went back, and I drove back down to the same location, and got there about an hour before sunset to the same location. And I was watching different things, and it was a spectacular time just for birding. A few hundred sandhill cranes came up out of the field and did a flyby, and were doing their honking and talking, and looked beautiful against the sunset. And then just as the sun was setting, a pair of short-eared owls came out, and I got to watch them until the sun set. And it was just spectacular. I wasn't able to get any decent pictures, but goodness gracious, I enjoyed watching those two. And then as I got back in the truck to turn around and leave, I didn't drive more than 200 yards, and there was a great horned owl sitting on a fence post. And when I rolled down my window, it was about 5 feet away from me, seemed to have no interest in leaving whatsoever. And so I just sat there and watched it for about 10 minutes in the post-sunset light that you get, that little bit of light there. And for me, that was magical. The idea of being alone in a beautiful location and getting to really watch one of these birds is an absolute thrill. The whiskered screech owl, I got in Arizona. There was a woman there who helped me for a couple of days find some different birds, including a couple of the raptors. And we went out one night right on the Arizona-Mexico border. And we'd gone 2 or 3 places. We hadn't found any, and we just pull up in the truck and park, and that was it. So we went up this one road, and I just pulled over and parked. And she said, "No, you got to turn around and back in." And I said, "Why do I need to back in? I mean, we haven't backed in anywhere. We're the only people here." She said, "This is a fairly dangerous area. We're going to go about 200-300 miles up this hill, and when we get to the top, we're in Mexico." And she said, "And this is a very popular drug run. And so if you see people walking toward us and they don't have backpacks or anything, and they've got their heads down, we're fine. But if you see people walking toward us, heads up, looking around, and they're wearing backpacks, we turn around and run back to the truck." And she said, "We get in this truck and we leave absolutely as fast as we can." So we were lucky in that we didn't find anybody trying to cross the border, but we did find the whiskered screech. So that was a neat deal. And we wound up with 2 of them. We were on a tiny little trail, maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. And we wound up with 1 whiskered screech on either side of us to where we could actually see it. We didn't shine the light on it, but we had flashlights, and just the ambient light that we would get from pointing them at the ground gave us enough to see it. So we got to see that and listen to them. And we probably got to do that for about 15 or 20 minutes. So that was absolutely spectacular. And again, another in a series of great moments on the trip. The ferruginous pygmy owl is, at least for me, was not an easy bird to find. I wound up finding a couple, 4 of them, but the best place to see them, if you ever want to go try, is the King Ranch down in Texas. Turns out they're famous for their ferruginous pygmy owls. And so I made a plan to go down there and spend a day. They'll take you out in a van and you look around at all the different birds. And I didn't realize just how big the King Ranch is, but it's actually larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. I mean, it is a massive ranch. It's 825,000 acres. So we got in this van with a guy named Tom Langshield, who's worked there for more than 25 years leading birding tours. And the first one that we found, we heard it only, we didn't get to see it, and we barely heard it. I wasn't willing to count it. And then the next one we heard, or I'm sorry, the next one we saw and heard, but it wasn't a great view. I mean, it was clear what it was, but it just wasn't a great view. And so we decided to break for lunch, and he knew where a picnic table was under these trees. And we stopped and set our lunch out on the little picnic table out in the middle of absolute nowhere. And I look up, and probably 10 feet from the picnic table is the one you're looking at here in this picture. And it stayed with us for the whole lunch. It just seemed to enjoy our company. And it was just fantastic. And I also got that same day my white-tailed hawk, which was a blast. And they're also known, if you're not familiar, their nickname is the fire hawk. And they are well known for when there are prairie fires, which obviously send insects, spiraling into the sky, and small rodents and mammals running ahead of the fire. The white-tailed hawks have figured this out, and they gorge themselves when these things happen. So if there is a fire down there, there are always white-tailed hawks, which is kind of a kick to know that going in. One of the people that I met at King Ranch was a young man named Frank Fabro, and he was down there to see the ferruginous as well. And we got to talking a little bit about my quest. And he's a young man, and ornithology is his passion. He's going to school for it. And he said, hey, if you have trouble getting a spotted owl, let me know. I can get you on that. It turns out that his summer job had been working for a logging company to find spotted owl nests. And then they would cordon off an area large enough so that the logging work wouldn't disturb them in their nest. And that was his job, was to go find these. And he said, I won't have that job this summer, but I still know some people. So give me a call and we can go down there and find some. And so I did. I gave him a call. He gave me directions on where to meet. He said, now you have to get the directions exactly right, because there's no cell service where we're going. And I'm going to go up the night before and just sleep in my truck, which he did. Unfortunately, the directions were perfect. We met up at 5 in the morning, and we found a mom and a fledge inside of 10 minutes in an area that had been wiped out in one of the recent fires in California. This was up in Northern California, by Grass Valley and Pine Grove and up in that area. And it was really eerie. All of the trees were blackened. There were no trees that weren't either gone or blackened. And yet there were these 2 spotted owls sitting there. So we took some pictures, watched them for about an hour. And he said, you know what, let's go hike into another area. I remember there was a great nest out here, and his predecessors had said that there had been nests there pretty consistently for a number of years. So we went out there, and we actually had to machete our way through the forest. He had brought a pair of machetes. It was so thick. And we hiked, I don't know, maybe a mile out there into the forest. And we came into a clearing, and this spotted owl was there. And again, another of these birds that had no interest in leaving. We actually sat down on a lunch. We had our backpacks. Sat down on logs. We ate our lunch. We watched the bird, took an unlimited number of pictures. Every once in a while, it would drop to the ground if it thought it heard or saw something, but go right back up to this exact same spot. And finally, we left, and the bird never did. We were there. I would guess we were there 60 to 90 minutes. And so to get to watch this particular bird, clean and preen and drop down and do all these things, I mean, it was like being in a zoo, except it was absolutely in the middle of the wild. And so that was another of those treats. Swallow-tailed kite. The story with this one is we live on a lake here in South Carolina, Lake Greenwood. And about an hour north from here, we get swallowtails coming down during migration. There's some areas up here where there are virtually an unlimited number of grasshoppers, and we get about 15 or 20 swallowtails every year. My son and I were out on the lake in our pontoon boat. We had the engine off. We were just floating in the middle of the lake. This was in September. This is right when this all started. I didn't have it planned. And a pair of swallowtails flew by less than 20 feet over our heads, went to the other side of the lake and turned around and did it again. It buzzed us twice. And so I checked eBird, and I've got a friend of mine who's a huge county fanatic here as far as birding. And there had never been swallowtails seen in this county before, and we got to see the two of them. And we started to talk, my son and I, about all of this and my love for the birds and whatnot. And that's where I decided to do this quest. By the time we got the boat back to the dock, RaptorQuest was an idea. And so this was the very first bird. This was the kickoff bird. I mentioned to you a guy named Scott Rashid. He is self-proclaimed, but I think it's accurate, small mountain owl expert. There are 4 small mountain owls that live in Rocky Mountain National Park, and he has devoted the last 25 years of his life to banding these birds, studying these birds, helping these birds, and occasionally, if he trusts you a little bit, sharing the birds with you. And so he was able to help me find a couple of birds, including the northern saw-whet and this boreal. He does a banding project in, well, now I forget the month, September, October. And so he invited me to come up and do the banding project with him. He's done it now for 23 years, and he's caught 19 boreal owls in the project. He does it for about 10 or 14 days every single year, doesn't miss a year. So he gets a little fewer than 1 a year. And I was there 3 nights, and we got 2 of them. So we got to see 4 or 5 northern saw-whets, and we got to see 2 boreals. And because they were in the banding, as you can see here, we actually, I was able to hold them, which was just fantastic. And this takes place in Rocky Mountain National Park. And the park gives him access to a building, gives him control of a building for these 2 weeks. So he sets up all his computers, his sound equipment, and his computers and stuff. And then he comes and works it every night from about 5:30 until about midnight. But you've got to carry this huge amount of equipment up the hill to set up the banding area, including a 75-pound battery that runs the sound, because he alternates and runs boreal calls and northern saw-whet calls. And when a bird hits that net, you've got to race up the hill, because some of the predators, birds and non-birds, have learned that birds get into those nets. So you got to get up there and get the birds out. So you're moving pretty fast back and forth. And he's in great shape and loves to run anyway, and he's used to the altitude. But in the 3 nights that I was there, we caught a bunch of different birds besides the owls. But none of them were hurt, none of them were eaten, none of them were damaged, and all of them took off. One of the things that both of the boreals did is, when it was time to go place them on a tree and then back off and let them assimilate, the boreals would stay for 5 or 10 minutes. The northern saw-whets, as soon as you set them down, they were gone. They're like, no, I didn't enjoy any of this, I'm leaving. But the boreals, both of them, stayed and hung around and watched and made some sounds and calls and seemed pretty comfortable with the whole thing. So that also was a treat. And I plan on going back to Colorado in the fall and doing that again with them this year, because it's just exciting to do. This sharp-shinned hawk was one that I got to see up in Commissary Ridge in Wyoming, which is a hawk watch site. And again, I don't know if any of you have been there, but it's a tough thing to get to. You get an address, you get a mark, and you drive out and it's the middle of nowhere, but the address doesn't get you to the hawk watch site. It just kind of ends on this 2-lane road. And I was meeting somebody up there that was going to help me with this. And sharp-shinned is what I wanted to see on that day. And eventually I drove a couple of miles away and I found a gate and a fence. And I thought, well, I'm going to open this and see if I can get some help. So I opened the gate, drove about a mile back to this beautiful ranch house, just a stunning ranch house, and knocked on the door, and a woman opened the door, and she must have been 5 foot and 100 pounds, and 90 pounds of it was leather. She just looked like she'd lived on this ranch in tough weather and tough times her whole life. Huge smile, extremely friendly, just a kick in the butt to have met her. And she gave me specific directions on how to get there. So I did, but I wound up going to the banding site first, and they had just trapped a sharp-shin, not this one. This one I got to see in the wild, but they had just trapped a sharp-shin and allowed me to release it, which was a really exciting thing for me to get to hold it and release it. And then they walked me the mile or so to the actual hawk watch site. And it turns out when I got to the site, there were 3 people working it. And these people are extraordinarily devoted. They work the site from sunup to sunrise. They work it for 7 or 8 weeks. They sit all day on the top of this wind-blown ridge. The winds hit up to 70 miles an hour. They've built these little rock things that they sit in. They're not even as big as a wading pool. Each one has built their own. And they don't take a day off in those 7 or 8 weeks. One day a week, they take an afternoon off, go into town, shower, and buy food. But otherwise, they're rugged camping out there. No running water. They've got to bring in all their own food, bring everything in. That's a remarkable level of commitment and devotion. And it turns out that one of the 3 was a woman who I had done some work with at a Raptor center in Charleston, South Carolina. I was doing some volunteer work down there, and she was running the volunteers and heading some stuff up. And so that was kind of a unexpected thing. She had left Charleston to go to California, but whatever project she was working on, they'd lost the funding. So she wound up taking this gig for the 8 weeks. And it was quite a treat to run into her on this wind-blown, windswept top of a mountain with no vegetation whatsoever. This was a dead tree about halfway down the mountain where I was able to see this one. And so, well, you know what? I apologize, but one of my slides seems to have disappeared. So my apologies for that. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I had a picture in the slide of a red-tailed hawk and a bald eagle. And again, many of you may know this already, and if you do, I apologize for repeating, but whenever you see a bald eagle in a movie or a television commercial or a TV show or whatever, and you hear the sound, you guys probably all know this, but it's always a red-tailed hawk, and it's normally the same one. There's a recording of a red-tailed hawk that gets passed around among all the sound engineers, and they use it because clearly the bald eagle's voice is not consistent with the look of the bird itself. It's kind of like the first time you hear Mike Tyson speak. It's a bit of a shock to hear that high-pitched voice come out of Mike Tyson. One of the things I learned in doing my research with the red-tailed hawks is they were an amazing beneficiary of President Dwight Eisenhower. So Dwight Eisenhower, when he took over as president, he is the one that built so much of the interstate freeways, and including the long stretches of perfectly straight roads so that he could, if we were attacked, they could land planes on these roads. We've never had to do it for war. We've had to do it occasionally for emergencies. But he built thousands of miles of freeways. As a matter of fact, the program he started wasn't completed until 1992. But the big, huge beneficiary of that is the red-tailed hawk, because the telephone poles that run along the side of these thousands of miles of highway are obviously perfect perches for them. and then the constantly mowed and generally prairie-like area around it is just great for them for hunting. And so the population of red-tailed hawks, which is inconsistent with most of the birds, raptors and non-raptors, has exploded in the last 50 years because of that. And there was I was going through North Dakota, and there was one point where I went about 3 miles, and there was a red-tailed hawk on every single telephone pole. I don't know if they used the same pole every day or how that worked, but every single pole there was a red-tailed hawk. It was just, for me, it was fascinating to see as we went through that. And so this is the bat falcon, the one that was down in Benson State Park. And it would be on this pole each night for about 3 weeks. It would land at roughly 5:30, give or take 10 minutes, and didn't mind that photographers were lined up on the other side of the street. And so that was a thrill to go through and see that. This osprey that we're looking at, if you ever get a chance, there's a place called Sebastian Inlet in Florida on the East Coast, just north of Vero Beach. And there are osprey there year round. And there's a tight little area, the inlet, which is what the area is named for. And when the tide hits, it rolls in fast in both directions, and it brings these mullet in and out each day. Once they get there in September of every year, the mullet. And so the ospreys line up, and they're just pulling mullet after mullet after mullet out of the water. The cormorants are there taking their fair share, and the osprey are taking their fair share. And you can take all the pictures you want and all the shots you want, and you can sit and watch wood storks and double-crested cormorants and osprey and all the terns that you could ever want to see, which is really very cool. This great gray owl was from Yellowstone National Park. It was minus 25 degrees, and it was a spectacular day for me. Yellowstone National Park in the summer averages between 15 and 17,000 guests a day. And the day that I was there in early January, I went, and there's only one road open in the winter. It starts in Gardner in Montana, drops down and goes 50 miles through the park, and then comes out of Cook City back into Montana. But through the park, it's all Wyoming. And that's the only road that's open, and it's just an out and back. You go the 52 miles, you get to Cook City, you have lunch, you turn around and drive back. And on that particular day, there were only 12 people in all of Yellowstone National Park. And half of them were doing some wolf counts, and then half of them were rangers. And I was the only guest in the park for that day. The rangers were laughing about it, and I found this great gray owl and got to watch it hunt, dive in under the snow, and the whole thing, as long as I could stand the minus 25 degrees. And this was very cool. This northern hawk owl, this is the one I told you about. This is another shot from that same day. That was just, or I can't remember if this was the afternoon or the morning, but it gave me an opportunity to take quite a few pictures, which was terrific. And peregrine falcon, I had a great time in California, as a matter of fact, down in San Diego. Some of you may have been down there, but in the Torrey Pines area, the peregrine falcons nest up on the cliffs there, and you can go down and find the peregrine falcons, and it is a spectacular thing to see. And peregrine falcons are becoming very much an urban bird. They love pigeons. Cities have pigeons. And so they are in almost all large cities, including San Francisco by you guys. You can find peregrine falcons. I went over and interviewed some people in Atlanta at the Four Seasons Hotel. They built an urban nest for the peregrine falcon on the 50th floor, on the dance floor of their hotel. So literally, if you're up there for a wedding or some kind of event and you're dancing and you look out these massive windows, there's a peregrine falcon nest box about 3 feet on the other side of the windows. And you get to watch that as it happens, which is a really, really neat deal. Bald eagles were a treat throughout the trip. If you ever get a chance In Maryland, there's the Susquehanna River, and the Conowinga Dam is on that river. And in April, the shad run up river, similar to what the salmon do, but these are shad. And as they go through the river, because nobody seems to care about the shad, they haven't built ladders or steppings or anything for them like they've done for the salmon. So they actually have to go through the turbines. And so a lot of them are killed or knocked unconscious as they come through. And there's up to 200 bald eagles in the area the size of a football field. And they are going through and just picking up shad after shad after shad and eating those. And then there's probably 50 to 100 double-crested cormorants doing the same thing on the other side. So that's a pretty neat deal to see that happen. I wanted to, on the rarities with the bat falcon, again, I didn't count it in the 53 because it's not a U.S. bird, but you've probably read a bit about the Steller sea eagle that has been dropping down into Northeast United States in the last 2 years. The theory is it came across the Bering Strait from Russia, and it spends its fall and early winter in northern Canada. It's been spotted recently in Newfoundland, and last 2 winters it has dropped down to Maine in February. So I went a year ago February. I missed it by a day, but I went again this past February, and I got to see it 2 days in a row. And if you haven't seen one, they're one of the couple largest raptors in the world. The Steller sea eagle and the harpy eagle down in Central America are probably the 2 biggest. It's roughly 50% bigger than a bald eagle. And so in the couple of days when I got to watch it, I got to see it take a Canada goose out and feed on that. And then it would go up into the trees. And there were 6 or 8 bald eagles who were apex predators. They're used to being in charge of everything along those lines. But when that Stellers dropped down, the bald eagles would just spread out. They would just back off and give this Stellers 20 or 30 feet. And then when the Stellers was full, it would fly back up in the tree, and then the eagles would eat. And then when they were done, then the crows would come in and eat. So you actually got to see the pecking order happening. And there's a lot of talk now that there's a chance that the Steller sea eagle and a bald eagle might crossbreed. So we might get to see something a little bit different. It's been here now almost 3 years. So there's a possibility of that happening, which would be a fascinating turn of events. And the other couple of rarities in raptors that have occurred while I've been on this, people don't count this, or maybe they do, but you've probably read a Eurasian eagle owl. Vandals came through Central Park to the zoo and cut it loose and let it go free, and it moved into Central Park. And the park rangers and zoo personnel spent about 3 weeks trying to capture it, and they couldn't. And the thought was that it wasn't going to be able to survive, but they gave up trying to trap it. And sure enough, it survives. And it roosts in pretty much the same area every day. If you go up there, you get a chance to see it. It's a really cool thing to be able to do. And again, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous bird. It's an absolutely stunning bird. And then the other rarity that has shown up during this process just showed up a couple of days ago in southeastern Texas. There's a roadside hawk that's been down there now. I think today's the 3rd day that came up from Mexico, crossed the border, and has made itself available. Yesterday, 48 people got to see that roadside hawk. So that was cool. I'm speaking down at South Padre Island right after the first of the year at their birding festival. So I'm hoping that bird will stay there long enough for me to get a chance to see it. And so those are some of the highlights of the things that I got to see and the things that I got to do on my trip, or my variety of trips. Like I said, I've written a ton of different books, but this was, for me personally, this one was different. This one I got to put my friends in that I traveled with or made. And it was a once in a lifetime thing. This again is the Northern Hawk Owl. If you have any interest, if you like the pictures or the stories of the book, you can get it on Amazon. You just look up RaptorQuest, it's there. And I'm working on 2 more books. One of them is I'm going to do this same book, but I'm going to do it for Central America. As a matter of fact, I leave on Saturday for 8 days down in Panama to go try to find some raptors. And a couple months after that, I'm going down to Belize. So I'm hoping to do a second RaptorQuest. And I'm pretty excited about that. And we'll see. I have my fingers crossed that I might be given a Christmas miracle on this trip and get to see a harpy eagle, which would be absolutely thrilling, but we'll see how that goes. So with that, I believe I've hit my time limit mark. I appreciate
that was fantastic. We have a number of questions on the chat. And also, I'm sure there's people in our audience, the 20 folks that are here will have some questions. The first question is a great question. I want to know the answer to this, which is I'd love to hear what camera gear you use to take your photos. They're great.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. I'm a brand new photographer. I picked up the hobby a little less than 2 years ago, and I shoot a Sony A1. And I use a 200 to 600. I use the Sony lens, the 200 to 600.
Wow.
I love the mirrorless.
Yeah.
It shoots 30 frames a second. It's got 50 megapixels. I often laugh because I'm not nearly as good a photographer as the camera is. And I tell people, with this camera, I should be able to just set it down, go and have a cigar somewhere, come back, and it'll have taken the pictures for me. And the answer, I see this question from Jennifer. Yes, I took all the photos in the book, for better or worse. And that is why there are about 3 or 4, maybe 5 birds in there that don't have any photos. I didn't get any that I thought were usable. Or in the case of the flammulated, I just didn't get any. I had some good friends offer me their pictures to put in there. But since this was such a personal journey for me and the book was so personal, it was as much a journal or a diary as it was a book. I just felt like all of the pictures should be mine, mostly because in anticipation of this question, I didn't want to say, no, they're not, a quarter of them belong to other people. So that is where where it was. Susan, your question about more of the birds, I apologize. There was a glitch in the presentation tonight, and about a half dozen of my slides that were all pictures of the birds slipped out. I don't know what happened to it. I'm not sure what went wrong. It hasn't happened before. But yeah, I love showing the pictures. I think it's a really neat thing. And so I apologize that the peregrine falcon shots weren't in there, and the other bald eagles and the golden eagle shots. There's about a half. You'll notice I went back and forth a couple of times. I'm trying to figure out what happened, where those went. I don't know why they slipped away, but they did. And my apologies for that. I would have loved to have shared them with you. And I really regret that I didn't. Well, now here's one that you didn't see. I don't know what the heck's happening with this, and I apologize. This is a ferruginous hawk. This was from Northern California. You mentioned you guys are doing a trip down to Pinnacles. That's where this was taken. And it was taken on a power pole. I didn't add that sign in there that said thank you. That's actually where the hawk was. I just thought, what a great shot. Not necessarily a great picture, but a great shot. I felt fortunate to have gotten that. And now,
any questions from the folks here? Yes.
How long will his Central America trip be?
How long will you stay down? Could you hear that? How long will you stay down in Central America?
This trip will be 8 days. So I've got 8 days in Panama, and then I'm going down to see, they're gone again. I apologize. I'm going down to Belize in March. So I will hopefully get some more. I just went to Costa Rica recently. That's where I saw a roadside hawk, which they're as common as red tails in Costa Rica, but first time they've been seen in the US. So, and once I finish the Belize trip and the Panama trip, there are 48 raptors in Central America that are not included in these 53. So a number of these birds obviously migrate to Central America, the ospreys and whatnot. And so since I've already got them in this book, I won't be putting them in that one. So I need to find 48 new raptors, or new to me. And that's what that second book will be about.
Other questions? I've actually been to a number of your spots looking for hawks and kites. I never found that snail kite or the hook-billed kite either. But
Well,
we do
I'll
have
tell you what.
we do have flags that I can show you.
If you ever get down to Florida and you want, I can absolutely get you on snail kites. There's a region, there's an area about a half hour west of Vero Beach. I've been there 4 times now in the last 2 years, and I have seen multiple snail kites on every trip.
Oh, great.
And they are, so yeah, they're one of the slides that has somehow disappeared. Again, my apologies. But yeah, I can, if you ever go down there, give me a call and I will get you on them.
Great. Yeah, we have a place up in northeastern California where we typically see 10 to 15 or hear 10 to 15 flammulated owls. And we've only seen their silhouettes flying because it's so dark, and we don't usually pinpoint them with a bright flashlight, but they're there.
Yeah, I've heard different views on that. I shy away from shining a light, you know, on a pointer or a flashlight on any of the birds. But I've also heard experienced birders say, you know, they've seen light before. You know, they're flying around, they see car headlights and different things. But I don't know. It doesn't seem appropriate to me. Mm-hmm. I don't judge those who do. I just don't do it. Mm-hmm. But I would be tempted with a flam, by the way, just so I could see one in the wild.
Did he see that? Did you find the California condors and pinnacles?
I did. Is
that one of your raptors?
Yes. Yeah, it's one of the 3. You've got the turkey vulture, the black vulture, and the California condor, the 3 vultures.
Right.
The county that I lived in Southern California, Ventura County, when they captured the last 22 California condors that were alive, I think it was 1989, 1992, somewhere around 1990. The last ones that they pulled out were in my county, Ventura County. Of the 22 that remained, we had the largest population. And so they went, as you guys know, they went to the San Diego Zoo and the LA Zoo, and that's when they did the rebuilding program. Now they're in 5 states.
Yes.
I had a friend that was in Moab about 2 months ago, and she had climbed to the top of a peak, and she took a video of a California condor flying through the canyon below her. So she had about a 40-second video of a condor flying back and forth, but she was able to get the shots from the top, which was great. But yeah, they're up in Oregon, they're in New Mexico, they're in Utah, they're in California and Arizona. Yeah,
my brother in the late 1980s.
Maybe, how old is your brother?
Maybe 1990. He went backpacking with one of the people that was trying to save the condors, and they went to a historical site where they hadn't been seen in 20 years, and they found a pair. And so my brother said, how many condors does this make? And he said, well, you're looking at 21 and 22 right here.
Oh, so my God.
That's what they got down to, is 22 birds.
Yeah, there's close to 500 now that are living free. And all of them have the numbers stapled underneath the wing that if you get a decent shot, you can pull their ID number. And there's a federal website that if you look up that ID number, it'll tell you the siblings, the parents, the birds they've fledged, how long it's been. It's a great thing. They give you a ton of information.
Any other questions here? Well, Scott, we'd love to thank you. We know you started at 10 o'clock your time, so I'm sure you need another cigar in order to get to sleep. But I'm
gonna go rouse my son out of bed and make him have one with me.
Very entertaining talk, and I'm sure you had an incredible journey through all those states. And I'd like to see all that number without crisscrossing the country 12 times, though.
Yeah, it is. My wife, of course, questioned my sanity, and I should mention it was just a godsend in supporting me. No interest in going on the trips. But like those last 2 birds that I mentioned in Montana, she had me on a plane both times less than 12 hours after I received the call.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
So,
our speaker last month was Dorian Anderson, who had a big year of biking, and he biked 18,000 miles. So
oh my
that
goodness,
probably is a pretty good match to your 100,000 or so.
he's somebody I enjoy speaking to.
Yeah, he's great.
Very true.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, thank you very much, Scott, and thank you all for being in attendance. We had a great audience tonight. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. I'm
Yeah.
honored that you had me, and I feel blessed about the trip.
We had nearly 50 folks in attendance, so that's great for us. So
that's fantastic.
Have a good evening, everyone. And don't forget to look for your fundraising appeal in the mail, and for all of our e-blasts for upcoming field trips, and for the next newsletter to keep you abreast with all the things that we're doing. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending tonight.
Bye.
Bye-bye.